Hello YouTube! This is our next project. I think it's easier to take care of the whole firewall than address all the small areas that need to be taken care of. We have this area of surface rust. We have a hole here that the previous owner put in for his driving lights. We have another hole here from the previous owner that needs to be taken care of. We have this rub mark from the wire harness that needs to be taken care of. And then over here we have more rust that needs to be taken care of. A hole from the previous owner, another hole from the previous owner, and I guess I want to address this bare metal here. So if I do the whole firewall up to that lip right there, that's an excellent point to break my paint from. Now this paint looks a little different from this paint because of the shadow, the way the lights are in the shop. There's a set of lights here, and then quite a ways away there's a set of lights over there. So this is in the shadow, so this looks different from what this looks. First thing I want to do is take care of this hole. I want to do the heater blower motor upgrade. It makes a huge difference and is well worth doing. But in order to do it, you have to enlarge this hole. So I think that's the first thing we're going to do. Let's talk about the motor for a minute. This is the stock fan that goes in the heater housing, just like that. This is an example of the upgrade motor, which slides into the same hole and all the bolt holes line up. So it's literally you bolt it in. You don't do anything else but bolt it in. There is some problems with replacement motors in that the shaft is too long. In this case, the shaft is the right length. We take the retaining nut off. Slide the fan off, and underneath the fan is a little clip, and you got to take that clip out, otherwise it's not the right height. And you take that clip and slide it on down that shaft. There's only one way it can go because of the shape of the shaft. Then the blower fan goes on, and with that fan and that spacer, it's exactly the right length. And we can tighten the nut down. And that fits into the hole. So the only thing we have to do is make a provision for the bigger motor. This is the part that I'm using to upgrade with. It's from Four Seasons, and it's part number 35587. It has the right length shaft and fits the way it should. So if you want to do this upgrade, you can probably use this part number or cross it to one that's correct. This is the old motor that fits in this hole, like so, with the terminal coming out right there. New motor doesn't fit, so we got to make this hole bigger. The hole measures 2.865, which is kind of meaningless to me. I know a machinist would know exactly what that is. But that is 2 7/8 inches. The motor measures 2.690, and that converts to 2 9/16 inches. Doing the math, there is a gap between the motor and the firewall of 5/16 of an inch, which means there's a gap of 5/32 of an inch on each side. And I think we want to maintain that, so we got to figure out how big this hole has to be now. 3.410, which is 3 3/8. Doing your math says that this hole now has to be 3 11/16 inch in diameter. So now we got to find a hole saw that size. The closest hole saw I have is 3 1/2. And that is almost the dimension of the motor, but it is a slight gap. I'm probably going to have to widen the hole after the fact with a die grinder. Maybe not, we don't know. But we have to put the hole saw together, and we just screw it on and set the lock. Now we have a problem. How are we going to drill that hole? Well, what I'm going to do is take a plate, just a piece of scrap metal, and I'm going to screw it to the firewall on the back side through these holes right there, and that'll give me something to put the pilot hole through. So let me get started on that. In order to drill this larger hole, we need a center point for the pilot drill in the hole saw. And obviously we don't have any material here. What I've done is taken a scrap piece of metal, and I'm going to use this hole and bolt this plate on the inside, and that way I can have a center hole. There's a plate right here, so I had to notch it out a little bit. I'll show you the inside when I get it bolted up. But for right now, what I have to do is put it on the inside and mark the holes. By holding a piece of metal in there, we can trace out the holes. And go drill. I've got our holes drilled for the bolts. I erased the big hole because I want a very accurate depiction of that hole. So I'm going to bolt it in place and then redraw the hole again. So the plate goes in like so. We'll tighten it in place. And redraw this circle for the fan motor very carefully. Now I'll draw this one too. Now we have to find the center of that. And in order to do that, I'm going to take it back out. In order to find the center of this circle, we'll use a little geometry. If we take a 90-degree angle, it doesn't make any difference what that 90-degree angle is, and put it anywhere on the circle, this point and this point will produce a center line through the circle. So I'm going to mark it . And draw a center line . Now we take and put the paper anywhere else on the circle so that these points aren't the same, and do the same thing. Find a center line. And connect those 2 points. And right there is the center of the circle. and we'll punch it. And we'll drill an 1/8 inch pilot hole in the center of the circle. And we'll bolt our plate up once again. What we want to do is check to make sure that the circle that we drew is in the circle of the firewall, and then we'll tighten it down because that means the center of that pilot hole is in the center of the hole. This is what our plate looks like on the inside. You can see we had to notch it for the reinforcement that was on the firewall in order to get it to sit flat. But now we're ready to drill the hole. So here we go. All right, now we have our hole cut. Let's take care of this sharp edge. Remember, this is the exact size of the motor, and the old motor had 5/32 of an inch gap between the motor and the firewall, and I believe the reason for that is so that you can be sure to get the 4 bolts that hold the heater box to the firewall in. If this is an exact match, then these holes have to be exact, and maybe they're not. So let's clean up the edge here. We now have a nice, clean, non-sharp edge. Let's see if the motor fits. It goes in, and we have room, and the plug for the electric comes through. We don't have to do anything with that hole. For the final fitment, let's put this on the back of the heater box and see if it fits. I now have the new motor bolted to the heater box. Now we're going to try to put the heater box inside the vehicle. We've got to get the heater hoses outlets to line up. We have to get the bolts for the heater box to line up, and that'll be determined by the size of this hole. Let's see if we have to make it any bigger. I guess not, it goes right in. So we're in good shape. We got a nice little gap around there, got a nice little gap around there. We can move on to cleaning up this firewall. I think the next step is to protect the paint that we don't want to affect. And this edge is going to be interesting in that it's a valley. And I don't want to touch any of the paint that's in the valley, which is on the same plane as what the firewall is. So that's going to be a pain in the neck. But let's tape it. Okay. And now the sanding starts with 80 grit. Now we'll switch over to a smaller sander that can get into areas that we weren't able to get into with a bigger orbital sander. And now we switch over to the hand sander and get all the areas that we couldn't get with the little orbital sander. This is the first hole that we have to plug up. And what I'm going to do is take a washer about the size of the hole and put it in the hole and weld that up, and then the inside of the washer I can weld up. Now what I'm going to do is actually do what might seem counterproductive, but I'm going to drill this hole out to a little bit bigger so that I have a little bit bigger gap so that I get good penetration with the weld. And while I'm at it, I'm going to drill this one, and this one. That'll make them all uniform, and I can put a washer in each one. And then once I'm ready, I'll hold the washer in place while I tack weld it with a magnet. So the washer will get sucked up right level with the level of the firewall. I'll tack it on this side. I can take the magnet off, and then I'll tack it on this side. Now this hole is pretty close to the right side. This one over here is not, but is now. We'll put a magnet across the hole, and then we'll put the washer in place. So that it is flush with the firewall. Now we'll grind it down for the first grinding and see what we got. All done. The next step is to do the whole thing over again with 180. All right, we've gone from 80 to 220. I think we're ready to clean and prime, which means I'm going to have to mask the back of that so we don't get all the paint inside the tub. What we'll do now is we'll wipe the whole thing down with some brake clean. And that gets rid of all the... Now it's time to put something in back of that so we don't spray paint through it. And I'm going to remask the edge so we have a nice sharp edge, because I may have marred the tape with the sanding. So that's the next step. I'm going to try to do this out of a spray can, and that's difficult on a piece this big because it's hard to keep a wet edge. But I think I can do it. I think if I work my way up this way, and then I got this big area here to do, and then I can work my way across like that, keeping a wet edge, hopefully. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spray all the joints first to make sure that I get them. And I may end up sanding We'll see. Here we go. And that's the first coat of 3. We developed a little bit of a dry edge right here. Now that's not the end of the world. I can sand it out, but I'd like to try to avoid it. So I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to paint this lip and that lip and underneath there. That's what I've been doing before. Then I'm going to paint down here, this piece, and that piece. I can do all that and get that wet. Then I'm going to do this piece, and I'll do this piece last. And hopefully this edge and this edge will still be a little damp from doing these 2 pieces, that I won't get the dry edge here. So here we go. What I'm going to do here is just knock off the little bit of roughness that's in the primer, and that's caused because I had to move so quickly to keep the edge wet. And what I have here is a sponge and some 600 sandpaper, and we're just going to gently go over this. Until it feels smooth. Stay away from the edges. And that's all I'm going to do. I didn't break through anywhere. It looks like I got pretty much everything here. I didn't get this. You can kind of tell where I didn't get because the water doesn't run off anymore. It kind of sticks to it. And now we'll just let it dry. Here goes the first coat of 4. That's the first coat. And we'll put on 3 more. This is the 4th and final coat of base color. And this can is almost empty. I got another one shaking in the storage room there. I'm going to do the seams with this can, and then I'll go get the full can and I'll do the full thing so that it's all wet. Here we go. That's it for this can. If someone was to ask me if you could produce a good coat with a spray can over a spray gun, the answer is no, you can't. Not on a large area, but on a small area you can. On this large area, I've got a dry spot right here. I've got a stripe right there. So we're going to try to do a little wet sanding and save it. We may have to put another coat on, but here we go. The good news is I did not rub through anywhere, so we don't have to put another coat of base coat on. Now we got to get it dry. This is the first of 5 coats of clear, and we'll do it the same way we were doing the base coat. We'll do the seams, and then we'll do the basic areas. There's 3 coats on here now. They recommend 4 to 5 coats. If this coat comes out good, it'll be the last coat. This will be the 4th coat. So here we go. I'm pushing my luck here. It's all really pretty good, but I got a couple little dry spots right here, and I think I'm going to try for one more coat. So this will be coat number 5. Here we go. What will the transition look like? I think it looks pretty good. One more piece of tape that I may not be able to get until it dries. Let's see. Now it's coming. This is the only area on the tub that I've rubbed out. I don't have a sun lamp, but I have a pretty good lamp here. And we can compare that to the Firewall. So I think it looks pretty good. I think we accomplished what we set out to do. We've repaired the rust that was here. We've made this hole bigger for the heater upgrade. We've removed the holes that were here from the previous user. They're gone. The rub area that was here is gone. All the stuff that was here is gone. This was rust, and this was rust. If you enjoyed this video, there will be more.